Hello and welcome to ThePapare.com as we continue our look at the groups of the Rugby World Cup 2015. We're looking at Group D today, the last group. Of course, as you know, all the teams, 20 of the teams divided into 4 groups of 5. And this is the final group, quite a tough group, I think. Group A is described as a group of death. And this group may be something similar to that for some of the teams involved in it. Let's have a look at what Group D is all about. We've got last time's runners-up France. And then we've got the team who was second ranked in the world until about a month or month and a half ago, before the rugby championship started in August. They were the second ranked team in the world. They were the team that came closest to beating the All Blacks, of course, back in Ireland, but they haven't been able to do that. They went until the 82nd minute and actually lost the game. So with probably the best coach in the world, Ireland is a team that is hoping for great things in this group. Then, of course, we have Italy. Italy, led by the impressive Sergio Parisse. Will this be their stage? Will this European Championship, this European World Cup, be where they actually make their mark? They've been doing well in the Six Nations. They've been constantly improving their game. Will they be able to do a number on France, who they're used to playing quite a lot, on Ireland, who they're used to playing quite a lot as well, because they're Six Nations opponents, and definitely they will probably beat Canada and Romania. Canada are coming through as a second place qualifier from the North Americas. They beat the US of A, so they're a better side actually than the US of A. They got a thrashing at the hands of the All Blacks last time, but that'll just spur them on, and they've got some very entertaining players. They like to play a good brand of rugby, so let's see what they have in store. And of course, Romania are the first place qualifier from Europe. We are not looking at them getting out of this group. Probably will be a lucky thing for them if they manage to actually not be the last place team in that group. Let's look first at the French. They are the ones who were the World Cup almost champions last time around in 2011, almost stole that match from the All Blacks, but in the end, the All Blacks prevailed. But the French are the most unpredictable team, one of the most unpredictable teams in world rugby. Let's wait and see whether we can rely on that unpredictability, ironically, in the World Cup this time as well. The men who will be charged with doing it once again, Thierry Dusautoir, he was a man who captained his country to a World Cup final, so he will know exactly what that's all about, and he will be aiming first, of course, to get to the quarterfinal. Probably one of the best flankers in world rugby at the moment, one of the best captains in world rugby at the moment, but he's been having some injury scares. They've kept him wrapped in cotton wool and his knee on ice, so let's see whether he's back to his brilliant best. Philippe Saint-André, of course, the mercurial winger for France, played in that inaugural 1987 World Cup, where also France made a final. He was one of the brilliant players for them. Is he a brilliant coach? He is one of those men that manages to inspire. Will he be able to inspire or annoy on the day? That's what I think most of these Frenchmen will be wondering. See, here are some of the men who have been tasked with trying to get France first out of their group and then on to the semi-final. Benjamin Kaiser, he doesn't sound like a very French name, but you can bet your bottom dollar that he does the business up front. And another man who is looked to as one of Philippe Saint-André's most go-to players is Louis Picamol, and he's playing in the number 8 position. He's primarily a ball carrier. Doesn't have the same all-round game of French number 8s of the past, maybe like somebody like Emmanuel Arinodaki, who was brilliant under the high ball, who was superb in the line-out, and was a great defender as well. Louis Picamol is looked at primarily as a ball carrier, and that's what Philippe Saint-André will be expecting for him. Frédéric Michalak, of course, the guy who was brilliant in 2003, was not so brilliant in 2007, and then in 2011 came on and almost did a bit of magic for France in that final. But of course, he's the one who scored that try, that famous Wayne Barnes forward pass that the New Zealanders are still talking about. This is the man that was responsible for that. Will he be able to do it again? We'll have to wait and see. The other man who I think is probably one of the most underrated players in world rugby is Wesley Fofana. The French still haven't realized which is his best position. Is he a good number 12? Is he a better number 13? Is he a better winger? That's something that I think the French have to sort out for themselves. Personally, I think he's a great number 12. He carries the ball brilliantly, but unfortunately he's a victim of his own talent, and they don't really know where to play him because he plays so well wherever he plays. Brilliant, strong runner, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of him. Yohan Huget, of course, at fullback will be the man that is expected to do all the counter-attacking. Remember the great Serge Blanco? This is as close as France have come in recent times to mimicking that counter-attacking style. Uge loves to run with the ball when he collects it. So let's wait and see whether these two guys will be able to make a difference for the French. Guys who have missed out, the winger, unfortunately, Teddy Thomas, doesn't manage to make it into the touring party. And Francois Trinh-Duc, of Vietnamese origin but plays his rugby as a Frenchman, is a guy who a lot of people were expecting to make the touring party, but the coaching staff had a few other ideas, unfortunately, for Trinh-Duc. But I certainly would have taken him for his experience. But there you go. And that's the French team. Will they be able to do what they did in 2011? Will they be the team that surprises everyone? Looking at it this way, if they finish second to Ireland, remember Ireland are ranked above them in the world rankings, or were recently. So if Ireland finish in first place in that group, New Zealand finish in first place in their group, then you've got New Zealand playing France. And where are they going to play them? In Cardiff, in the Millennium Stadium, where that fateful 2007 reversal happened to Graham Henry, Luke McAllister, Richie McCaw, Dan Carter, and all those All Blacks. They will be hoping and praying that they don't have to play France at the Millennium Stadium one more time. And if you know the French, they'll be hoping that that's exactly what they get. Who knows, they might even go out there and actually lose to Ireland. Ireland are a team that has been coming on in leaps and bounds recently. They've managed to win a few Six Nations titles in the recent past, but of course with the loss of Brian O'Driscoll, that's something that leadership-wise Paul O'Connell may struggle to match, because of course Brian O'Driscoll was one of the greatest players ever. But Paul O'Connell is not too far away from that. He's a legend in his native Ireland. And of course, Joe Smith is one, if not the best coach in world rugby, I feel, because he has managed to take this Ireland forward pack, transform them into a bunch of beasts. And then, of course, you've got guys like Jonathan Sexton, whose game has improved tremendously when he's been under Joe Smith. And you've got guys like Rob Kearney as well, who can do the business at the back. Then you've got Tommy Bowe, Simon Zebo, all these players who Joe Smith has actually brought out of the woodwork. But the tower of strength will, of course, be Paul O'Connell. Alongside him, Cian Healy, probably one of the best props in the world. He carries the ball brilliantly, and also the way he carries the ball in the loose as opposed to his scrumming. If you remember, he was almost primarily responsible for that win that Ireland had over Australia in World Cup 2011. It was a complete surprise win, and Cian Healy was one of the main men in that. So don't ever underestimate the power of the prop forwards to make a difference in a game. Conor Murray, he was almost not on the plane because he got injured, but he's probably the best scrum half going around in Ireland at the moment. Peter Stringer was the guy who had so much time to do what he did from the base, but Conor Murray also brings a kicking game to his number 9 place, so that's something that's very important. And of course, Sean O'Brien, who has been carrying the ball brilliantly, but especially at number 7, he has been winning turnovers, which you don't find Northern Hemisphere sides doing as much as their Southern Hemisphere counterparts. So that's something that Sean O'Brien will be expected to do. But for me, the key man, Jonathan Sexton, his kicking game has been absolutely outstanding. If you remember that match that the Irish lost in the 82nd minute to the All Blacks, it was because Jonathan Sexton missed a very kickable kick. He had been fantastic all the way throughout, and in the 74th minute or 75th minute, he missed a kick that he would otherwise have made with his eyes closed. So he is key to them. If he gets injured, then the Irish really have a problem. But if Jonathan Sexton is on the top of his game, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be, he's going to be an absolute revelation. Rob Kearney is the other guy I was talking about at the back, one of the greatest defenders that you can come across. Jordan Murphy was probably one of the best Irish fullbacks, but Rob Kearney has come through and done even better, I think, than Jordan Murphy did, because Rob Kearney is so strong, and even his ball carrying skills, the way he hits the line, the sort of angles that he runs are really brilliant, good to watch. Guys who didn't make the touring party: Andrew Trimble, Isaac Boss, and Kieran Merriman. And these are guys who can count themselves really unlucky. Irish rugby has probably a little bit more depth, maybe even more depth than English rugby, and certainly more depth than Welsh rugby. So looking at these guys, Andrew Trimble, I guess there's no real debate about the fact that the wingers that have been chosen are a bit better than he is at the moment. But Isaac Boss can count himself a little unlucky. He would have been a good understudy to Conor Murray to have in the touring party. But that's the way the cookie crumbles for these guys. And Ireland will be looking to finish on top of their group and hopefully try and get themselves a quarterfinal against Argentina, which is what they will fancy themselves which being able to beat. Then, of course, we have Italy. Italy have been a team that have been constantly improving. Their Six Nations form has been improving, and now the other 5 teams in the Six Nations take Italy games much more seriously. I think they have one of the best players in the world in this position, and unfortunately he doesn't play for a better team, but Sergio Parise has been probably the best all-round number 8, consistent number 8s in the recent past that I have ever seen. And he has been a fantastic servant of Italian rugby. He's got all the skills of a back. He's got the size of a number 8 and the speed to match as well. He's brilliant in the line out, brilliant in the tight, leads those forwards so well. So if he has a good game, just one good game, maybe Italy could beat France, maybe Italy could beat Ireland and set that whole group alight. All it takes is one good day on the park. And of course, Jacques Brunel is the man who is in charge of the Italians. And since John Kirwan started off ages ago with the Italians, I think he's made a business of bringing sides out and bringing them to a certain level like he did with Japan as well. So a lot of his ethos goes through Sergio Parise, and hopefully Italy will be able to make a couple of wins against some of the bigger teams that would really throw this World Cup really wide open. Playing his 5th World Cup, Mauro Bergamasco, what a monster in the open side flank position. He's a guy that I think will be really devastating. But he's getting on a bit in years, but that experience can't be matched. Then, of course, Martin Castrogiovanni playing his 4th World Cup. He's that beast in the front of the Italian scrum. The Italian scrum also something that a lot of people are very fearful about, and especially like that Argentinian scrum. The Italian scrum also is something that can do a bit of damage. Their tight play when they get close to the opposition line, that rolling maul is something that Castrogiovanni will be someone who is orchestrating. And Michel Campagnaro, he's one of the backs who is expected to do a little bit of damage. Unfortunately, he lacks a bit of size and experience, but with the forwards playing the way that they are, maybe Campagnaro will be one who manages to do the business. But Italy, for me, are a team that looks like they will not be able to make it through to the quarterfinals, but they will make it difficult for other teams to do so. Moving on now to speak of the second qualifier from the North American continent, and we have the USA who have gone through in Group B, and in Group D we have Canada. Now Canada got a thrashing of their lives, 70 odd points that the All Blacks ran in Wellington, and despite that it was a very tough game for the All Blacks in rainy conditions as well. And the Canadians are used to this sort of wet, muddy conditions. They live in it all the time. They play in it all the time. So as a result of that, they won't be overawed by the spectacle. They've done well in World Cups so far. They haven't been able to eke out a lot of wins, but nevertheless, they will be searching for a win definitely over Italy or one other member of their group. They will be looking for at least one win. So Canada will be keeping their eye on that prize, but I think they will be quite happy playing second fiddle to teams like France and maybe even Ireland. So let's look at who's in charge for them. Tyler Ardron is the man who captains them, and Kieran Crowley has been in charge of them surprisingly for 7 years. Now that's not something that you see usually. Kieran Crowley, ex-All Black, he played in that match that ran up one of the highest scores ever against Japan, 145-10 or something in the 90s. But he knows what World Cup rugby is about because he's been part of a winning setup. Has he been able to transfer those skills over a period of time to the Canadians? That's what we will be seeing today. But Canada has been a constantly improving side, and they've got a very good culture of rugby running through their country. Jamie Cudmore is one of their big men, of course, who will be expected to defend against the likes of the French. And Jeff Hassler, an exciting runner. He's a man that I think they will be looking to make the line break. So that's something that Jeff Hassler is going to have on him. He's one of the more famous names in Canada rugby. And of course, DTH van der Merwe, who comes out of South Africa but now plays his rugby in Canada, is looking like he is one of the men also who spark this Canadian fight back. So let's see what these guys can do. Romania is the last team in that group, and Romania, of course, have played in every World Cup since 1987. They've had a chance to be part of the pool in every competition, but as a result, they haven't really improved too much. They're the top qualifier from Europe alongside Georgia, and they lost to Georgia recently, but that shouldn't hold them back. But given the way that they come through and produce some outstanding footballers, let's wait and see whether they can do something. But I doubt that they will be anything other than last place in this group. Mihai Makovai is the flanker that they will expect a lot from. He's one of their most experienced players. And Lynn Howells, a former Welshman, knows exactly what attacking rugby is all about, but unfortunately he's constrained by the lack of talent in his backs, and he will be looking purely towards his forwards to make a little bit of a difference for him. So Ian Paulika is one of the men who will be up front and leading that forwards charge. It will be a very tight game. We won't see exciting rugby from the Romanians. Saba Gal is another man who is expected to be a key player for them, and Atalin Fercu also in the backs is expected to be one of the men that the Romanians look forward to, but I don't see them actually doing too much damage in Group D in the Rugby World Cup 2015. So that's a summary of Group D. Looking forward to this, I think it's actually one of the tougher groups in the World Cup. Group A is obviously the group of death, and then you've got Group D, where Italy and Canada can make you pay. And if France and Ireland are not careful, they could slip up against one another. And although the French are billed as favourites to go through from this in top position, I would not hedge my bets with that one. I would put a little bit of money on Ireland as well. So that's an interesting group. And looking at Canada as well and Italy, there might be some competitive matches in there definitely. So Group D is one to watch out for as well. Don't forget, you can catch all this action, all the information you need as we keep previewing and looking through the Rugby World Cup 2015 here on ThePapare.com.